Sometimes, the loneliest person in the room is the one who understands everyone else. They laugh at the right moments, say something thoughtful, and still leave feeling strangely unseen. Not because nobody talked to them, because nothing in the room felt real enough to touch them. That kind of disconnection is hard to explain without sounding arrogant, dramatic, or broken. So most intelligent people learn to hide it behind competence, humor, or quiet observation. They become easy to admire and strangely difficult to truly know. People assume they are fine because they seem composed, self-contained, and emotionally difficult to shake. But inside, there is often a constant feeling of standing one step outside the circle, watching, listening, understanding more than they want to, and belonging less than they expected to. If that sounds painfully familiar, it is probably not just social anxiety or bad luck. It may be the cost of seeing too much while feeling too little reflected back. Intelligent people are often told their minds are a gift, and sometimes they are. But a sharp mind can become a strange kind of distance. You notice tone changes before words are finished. You hear what people mean, not just what they say. You catch the performance, the insecurity, the contradiction, and the small hidden plea underneath. And once you see all of that, casual connection stops feeling casual. Small talk can start to feel like emotional cardboard. Not because you think you are better than anyone, because your mind keeps searching for signal in places built mostly from noise. You want honesty. You want depth. You want a conversation that feels like two nervous systems actually meeting. Instead, you often get scripts, polite answers, social reflexes, little rehearsed identities people wear so they can survive the room. And your brain notices the gap immediately. That gap is exhausting. It is hard to relax around people when you can feel how much they are managing themselves. It is even harder when you are managing yourself just as much. Because intelligent people are not only good at reading others, they are usually very good at monitoring their own impact too. They notice when they are talking too long. They notice when their answer sounds too intense. They notice the exact moment someone's eyes glaze over. They notice when their honesty makes the room slightly uncomfortable. So they adjust, then adjust again, then become so self-aware they can barely act naturally anymore. This is one reason intelligence can create social distance. Not because intelligent people lack people skills, because they often have too many layers of awareness operating at the same time. One part of them is speaking. Another part is analyzing a response. Another part is predicting how they will be remembered later. And another part is quietly wondering why connection always feels so effortful. That constant internal processing can make even simple interactions feel heavy, especially when it started early. A lot of intelligent adults were observant children. And observant children usually do not become observant for no reason. They learned early that moods mattered. Silences mattered. Facial expressions mattered. The energy in the house mattered. So they became students of atmosphere before they ever became students in school. They learned to read the room because reading the room kept them emotionally safe. Maybe home was unpredictable. Maybe love was present but inconsistent. Maybe being smart became the easiest way to earn attention without asking for too much. So they became capable early, careful early, insightful early, and a little older than their age from the inside out. That kind of intelligence often looks impressive from the outside. But inside, it can create a deep loneliness. Because when you grow up reading people better than they read you, connection gets uneven. You become the translator, the stabilizer, the one who understands without being understood. People feel comfortable unloading their lives onto you. They say you are easy to talk to. They say you just get it. But when you need that same depth back, the room suddenly gets very quiet. That is a particular kind of ache. Being emotionally useful is not the same as being emotionally held. And many intelligent people confuse those two for years. They become the friend everyone calls during a breakdown. The coworker who notices tension before anyone says a word. The partner who can explain the other person's feelings better than their own. But when they finally say, "I'm tired," nobody fully understands what kind of tired they mean. Because it is not just physical tiredness. It is relational tiredness. It is the exhaustion of constantly translating your inner world into a language other people can tolerate. It is the fatigue of shrinking complexity into something socially acceptable. It is knowing exactly how much of yourself to reveal and still feeling misread. And after enough of that, withdrawal starts to feel safer than hope. So intelligent people often spend more time alone. Sometimes because they genuinely enjoy solitude. Sometimes because solitude feels cleaner than disappointing connection. Alone, they do not have to simplify every thought before speaking. They do not have to laugh at things they do not find funny. They do not have to pretend a shallow bond is enough. They can breathe in their own rhythm. They can think without interruption. They can finally put down the social costume that never quite fit. But solitude can become complicated too, because the same mind that protects them can also trap them. It replays conversations. It questions motives. It notices patterns that may be real, exaggerated, or somewhere painfully in between. A delayed text becomes a whole emotional investigation. The strange tone becomes evidence. A half-hearted invitation becomes a story about being tolerated instead of wanted. Intelligent minds are good at connecting dots. Unfortunately, they also connect dots in the dark. And when loneliness mixes with pattern recognition, the result can feel brutally convincing. This is why social disconnection is not always about other people being shallow or cruel. Sometimes it is about sensitivity meeting complexity without enough emotional rest. Sometimes it is about a nervous system that stays half alert even during connection. Sometimes it is about fearing disappointment more than craving closeness. And sometimes it is about having standards your heart needs but your world rarely meets. You see this in everyday moments all the time. Someone asks how you are, and you give the edited version, not because you want to lie, because you already know the full answer would make them uncomfortable. A group conversation turns loud and playful, and suddenly you feel miles away. Everyone else seems carried by the moment. You are noticing subtext, status shifts, who feels left out, who is trying too hard. You are there physically, but mentally, you're tracking 10 invisible currents at once. At work, people may see you as capable, calm, and strangely hard to read. They respect your mind. They trust your judgment. But they rarely realize how much energy it takes to stay that composed. In relationships, this can get even more painful. You may love deeply, but reveal yourself slowly. You may crave intimacy, but pull back the second something feels emotionally careless. You notice inconsistency fast. You notice avoidance fast. You notice when someone likes your attention more than your actual inner world. And once that realization lands, it is hard to unknow it. So you start protecting yourself before the wound fully forms. You answer a little later. You share a little less. You tell yourself you are being realistic. Maybe you are. But maybe you are also bracing for a familiar kind of letdown. Family can be its own lonely territory too. Especially when you are the mature one too early. The reasonable one. The self-sufficient one. The one who did not need much. Families love that role because it asks nothing from them. But the child who asks for little is often the child who learned asking changes nothing. So intelligence becomes part of the adaptation. You become articulate enough to explain your pain, then quiet enough not to bother. That contradiction follows people into adulthood more than they realize. They can describe themselves with stunning precision, but struggle to let anyone close enough to witness the unedited version. They know their patterns. They understand their defenses. They can explain why they detach, overthink, or disappear for days, and still feel powerless inside the moment when it actually happens. That is another truth nobody says enough. Insight does not automatically create ease. Sometimes it just gives pain better lighting. You can understand exactly why you feel disconnected and still feel disconnected. You can know your childhood shaped your nervous system and still freeze around closeness. You can recognize self-protection while still needing it. That does not mean you are failing. It means awareness is only the beginning, not the whole repair. And still, there is something important to say here. Your disconnection is not proof that something is fundamentally wrong with you. It may be evidence that your system has spent years filtering for sincerity, safety, and depth. The filter can isolate you, but it also protects what is real in you. The goal is not to become less perceptive so connection feels easier. The goal is to stop assuming everyone will mishandle what you have to offer. Because some people will. But not everyone will. There are people who do not panic around depth. People who are not threatened by silence. People who do not need you to become smaller so they can feel comfortable. People who can meet intelligence without turning everything into competition. People who can hold complexity without rushing to solve, label, or reduce it. Those people exist. But intelligent people often miss them at first. Not because they are blind. Because disappointment taught them to scan for danger before possibility. So they notice red flags quickly and green flags slowly. They trust discomfort faster than warmth. They believe in consistency immediately and sincerity only after repeated proof. That makes sense. But it can also keep them emotionally starving in rooms that are actually safe. Sometimes the shift begins very quietly. Not with becoming more social. Not with forcing yourself into louder spaces. But with choosing fewer people and showing up more honestly with them. Letting one conversation go a little deeper than usual. Resisting the urge to translate yourself into the most acceptable version. Saying what you actually meant. Admitting when something hurt. Letting someone surprise you instead of assuming the ending before the scene arrives. That is terrifying for intelligent people. Because vulnerability feels especially risky when you can already imagine all the ways it breaks. But real connection usually begins where perfect self-management ends. Not total exposure. Not emotional dumping. Just a little less editing. A little less pre-rejection. A little more willingness to be accurately known. And if you are someone who feels socially disconnected because your mind never really turns off, hear this. The problem is not that you feel too much or think too deeply. The problem is that you may have spent years around environments too limited to receive you. That would make anyone feel lonely. Especially someone who notices everything. Especially someone who learned early that being understood was never guaranteed. So if you have felt out of place, tired of shallow interactions, or secretly exhausted by people, that matters. It does not make you cold. It does not make you broken. It does not make you impossible to love. It may simply mean your inner world has been waiting for a more honest room. And until that room appears, do not mistake your loneliness for lack of worth. Sometimes disconnection is not a sign you are failing at being human. Sometimes it is a sign you have outgrown spaces that only reward performance. The answer is not to become easier for everyone to digest. The answer is to become more at home inside your own depth. Because the right people are not looking for a simpler version of you. They are looking for the version that finally stopped apologizing for being hard to fake. And when that version enters a room, the loneliness begins to loosen. Not all at once, but enough to breathe. Enough to stay. Enough to believe that being deeply perceptive does not have to mean being deeply alone.